Okay, hi everyone. My name is Shani Evenstein. I'm from Israel and also part of the Education Collaborative and the Wikipedia Education Program. And today with me is Pete Forsyth from the US, and he has created a WikiMOOC, which we're going to talk about a bit. So Pete, why don't you introduce yourself and I'll mute myself.
Okay, thank you, Shani. Yes, my name is Pete Forsyth, and I have been a Wikipedian for almost 10 years. I have my Wiki birthday is about the same time as Wikipedia's birthday, so in January I'll celebrate my 10-year anniversary. And for the last few years, I also have run a consulting business where I help organizations learn about Wikipedia and engage with Wikipedia. And so one of the biggest projects that I've done with that business was known as Communicate OER for Open Educational Resources. And it was a project for the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation based here in the United States, which is one of the main leaders in establishing open educational resources in the world of education. So they've funded many, many projects around creating freely licensed educational resources and cultivating communities of educators to improve on each other's work and reuse it and repurpose it for different audiences. And so the purpose of that project, which lasted for about 2 years, was to improve the Wikipedia articles relevant to that practice. So the article about open educational resources, the article about Creative Commons licenses, specific articles about specific OER projects, etc. But we didn't want to just improve them one time. We wanted to engage the large community of people around the world who are passionate about OER and help them learn to edit Wikipedia and develop some skills in updating and improving those articles. So we actually had, we did not have a MOOC or a course as part of our original project plan. But what happened was we found that some of our hopes and expectations didn't work out. Some of the original ideas that we had of how to engage people in the OER world. And so we developed the idea of a course partway through the project, and it turned out to be the most successful program that we ran. So what we did with the course was we made it the course free and open for anyone to join. They didn't have to have an interest in OER. The course was about both open educational resources and Wikipedia, but some people joined just because they were interested in OER, and some people joined just because they were interested in Wikipedia. And I think by the end of the course, all of the students had some interest in, had found some value in both topics because they really do overlap so nicely.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. And can you tell us maybe about the platform that you used and who exactly was the target audience to begin with? I mean, you said people interested in OER, but that's a really general, I mean, how did you find people? So
I'll answer that one first, and then I'll talk about the platform. Mm-hmm. So as far as how we recruited students to the course, it changed. We ran the course 4 times, and I hope to run the course a 5th time in the spring. Everything changed a little bit. We learned, something each time we did it and improved it for the next time. Mm-hmm. But initially, we had built up a pretty large email list of people who had some interest in Wikipedia. We had attended several open education conferences in Paris, in Vancouver, and through those connections had a presence at some other conferences and email lists. So we had a pretty good list of individuals to alert from the beginning, and we also benefited a great deal from blog posts on the Creative Commons blog and the Wikimedia Foundation blog, which really drew a lot of attention to it. And then in future iterations, we had things like that, but we also had past students that were telling their friends and colleagues about it, or in some cases they were coming back to take the course again. So that sort of improved the recruitment. And then in the final round, we actually, all of this, the entire project was done in affiliation with the University of Mississippi. And for the 4th iteration, the university actually agreed to, well, the professor I was working with there, Robert Cummings, who's actually on the board of the Wiki Education Foundation now, he offered a course in the School of Education. That's not his, he's in the College of Liberal Arts, but he offered a course outside of his main college at the university, and it was going to include our course as a component, as 6 weeks in the middle of his course. And it also included a MOOC run by Wayne McIntosh of the OER Foundation. And so the idea there was that he would have his students earning formal university credit for the course and working alongside people who were taking the course for free, and everyone would benefit from interacting with one another. Unfortunately, there were some logistical problems, and so that part didn't end up happening. But I think it's a very useful model. I think it's something we'd really like to do in the future. And I think it's a worthwhile thing for others working on things like this to consider.
So you're specifically talking about collaborating with an ongoing academic course and then having the MOOC as part of what's happening in the course?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So
that was I think interesting to the university, because not only did it offer, well, really for 2 reasons. It would offer their students an opportunity to interact with people around the world, because we had students in many different countries. And so that was a worthwhile, experience for them, that their students could sort of expand their educational opportunities through the course. And also it allowed the university to become known around the world. So if students in Indonesia or Germany or somewhere else were taking a course through on Wikipedia through the University of Mississippi, then that helps them to, become better known around the world.
Certainly. So let's talk a bit about the small details. Like, first of all, what not small at all, actually, but we're curious to know what platform you used. We had some people in the past using Moodle LMS system, but Moodle is really not that, how shall I put it? It's not really interactive. It's not really user-friendly. So, so those cases weren't successful on that end. So we're curious what you were using.
So this is also something that evolved a great deal from one iteration to the next. Initially, we did it, it was part of the School of Open, which is a component of peer-to-peer university. And so they were launching with a new platform, and we, in the first iteration, we very heavily focused on that as our central platform. And that that was another component of the recruitment. So the School of Open is very closely connected with Creative Commons, but also it had its own following. So just advertising our course on the School of Open's platform brought in some students in itself. We found that the platform was, it was very good in some ways, but it was confusing in others. And this is something that this is something that became a continual issue as we experimented with different platforms, is that many of the features that the School of Open's platform offered are actually duplicate what's available on Wikipedia. So for instance, if a student should be engaging on an article talk page about the article that they're working on, then it's a little confusing for them if there's also a discussion platform in the LMS where they can, and so they have to make a choice. Where do I post a comment, or where do I ask a question? And so gradually we have moved towards using Wikipedia itself as the platform as much as possible. And that the obvious negative of that is that Wikipedia was never designed to be an LMS. And so in many ways, it's frustrating. But the big positive is that the whole purpose of the course is to teach people about how to use a collaborative environment. And so we found that the more we could get them immediately to Wikipedia, they were starting to learn what they were there to learn, instead of first having to learn one collaborative platform and then use that to learn about Wikipedia. So, you know, even though Wikipedia talk pages are not the best kind of platform for having a group discussion for a class, we found that it was much better to just do it anyway and deal with those problems, because as we dealt with those problems, the students were learning how to use Wikipedia as well.
That's really interesting, and I promise to get back to how you actually managed the course later on. For now, I'm curious how many students you had in each iteration, and altogether. I mean, how many students went through this MOOC?
Well, I should have gathered the exact numbers for you. I have to go from memory here a bit, but the numbers increased every time, and the retention numbers increased every time. And I think from memory, I think we had about maybe 100 the first time that signed up, and only about 5 to 10 really engaged thoroughly throughout the 6-week course. The second time we had a similar number, maybe a few more, maybe like 120 originally sign up, but the really significant increases were in how many stayed with the course. And I think that really reflects us learning to do a better job in the course, and being, you know, there were fewer distractions and confusions each time, and we were able to help the students feel engaged and find their way towards doing something productive early on. And so by the final time that we ran the course, the 4th time, I think we had about 30 to 40 students that completed the project. With the main project that completed the 6 weeks, and the main project was to make a substantial to an article. And what a substantial improvement meant was very much open to interpretation. But you know, so in some cases, students wrote very highly detailed, very well referenced articles. In other cases, they might have just added a few paragraphs to an existing article and a few sources. But in that range, there was a pretty rich range of projects.
Very interesting. You said that you didn't, I mean, you kept it quite open in terms of what you expected or what the end result was, as far as you're concerned.
Well, I wouldn't say it's entirely open. So what we did, we created a badge. And actually, by the end, we ended up creating 2 badges. And this is a big regret of mine, is that I think we should have been more organized about how we used the badge. And unfortunately, I think many people earned it that we didn't. The logistics ended up sort of being more than we expected. And I think there are people who earned it who haven't been given it. But the badge is you can find it linked in the pages for the course. I'll give you the links for the course at the end of the call. But it's called the WikiMOOC badge. So the name of the course was WikiMOOC. That stood for Wikipedia School of Open, and that sort of became the nickname for the course that everyone used. And so that badge it's based on English Wikipedia. There are what's known as achievement awards. I'm not sure if this exists on other language editions, but these are things that people place on their user page, and they reflect just the number of articles, the number of edits that you've made, and the number of years that you've been engaged with Wikipedia. So for different levels, there's you know, you might be considered a novice editor, a beginner editor, an intermediate editor, you know, things like that, and there's a badge that goes with it. So we took one of those badges and just added a couple of requirements to it. So it's the same thing. It's a certain number of months and a certain number of edits, but then also it's having made a substantial improvement to it, at least one article, and having engaged in some discussion. And so that it's pretty formally defined, but within that formal definition, there's a really broad range. So many of our students greatly exceeded the requirement. You know, if you started a new article and worked with a number of other people and added 30 or 40 references and really stuck with it for a long time, that's far beyond what we imagined the badge would reflect from the beginning. But a number of our students did take an approach like that.
Okay. I think let's sum up what you've just told me.
Yeah.
Basically, the goal was to well, not the goal, but the target audience was people already interested in open education and OERs, right?
Yes.
If I got it correctly. And
yes, but many people came along who did not, you know, through other channels, who didn't have a strong interest in that to begin with.
So basically, anyone who's interested in Wikipedia was target audience as far as you're concerned. Were you considering different ages? Were you targeting university students, or was this maybe something that also high school students could do? How did you look at it? I mean,
we did not make we did not really target any groups like that. I should be clear. We were you know, trying to make the most effort to reach people who had an interest in open educational resources. But we were also very clear that that wasn't a requirement. So you know, a number of people did come who didn't have that initial interest. But beyond that, no, we really didn't try to refine it, because really we were, as much as, you know, we were trying to learn who was going to be interested as much as we were trying to, we didn't really have a good basis for knowing who a good target audience would be in terms of, you know, university students or certain age groups.
Yes,
we didn't, I would say that high school, I think I don't remember that we had any high school students. We may have had one or two. I think that we had one or two. I'm going to have to go back and look now. But I think that would be a difficult audience. I think that I would say that, you know, at least about 20 years old or university level would be sort of where we were looking, because I think the needs of high school students tend to be pretty different. Of course, a high school student who's very highly motivated, of course, as we know just from working on Wikipedia, can do all kinds of things that we might not expect.
Yes. And the main goal, if to take it one step further, the main goal was to basically have some kind of, first of all, if I understand you correctly, get familiar with Wikipedia, and then have some kind of what you called significant contribution, right? To an article. It doesn't have to be a new article, but it has to like expand significantly.
Yeah.
Okay. So how, I want to get a bit more into how you decided how long to do it, and what were the length of each sessions, and what were the subjects that you basically how you decided to divide it.
Yeah. Well, the length of time, I think that we were actually, if we really go back to the beginning, we were very much trying to coordinate with the School of Open's launch. And I don't think that our 6 weeks exactly matched their plan, but they were trying to launch several courses at the same time in, you know, what they were referring to as a term. So it was important that all of the courses be more or less of, you know, of similar length. And also, we felt that it was very important that it be somewhere, you know, at least a month, because understanding Wikipedia is so reliant on actually having some time for interaction. So if you leave a note on a talk page, it might be 2 or 3 weeks before anyone replies to it. And even if you take a strategic, you know, even if you're very focused on how you do that, you leave a note in a few different places and you try to make sure that you get a response, it still will probably be a few days before you get any kind of response. So we wanted our students to have an opportunity to go through several iterations and actually have conversations that evolve over a period of several weeks. So that was probably the most important guiding factor for us. I think, you know, of course, it would be possible to do a much shorter Wikipedia course, but I don't think you could have the kind of hands-on learning about what it's like to edit Wikipedia in a much shorter course.
So basically 6 weeks, and can we go through how each week looked like, what you had online, what were the students expected to do?
Yes. So the page on English Wikipedia, I'll just say the shortcut now, and we can put it in the notes. But it's WP colon, so it's in the Wikipedia namespace. WP colon WikiSoo, WIKISOO, and that has a good overview of the 6 weeks. And I'm just pulling that up right now so that I remember. It's slow to come up here, so I'll start with that. So the first week was mostly setting expectations for the course and getting people set up with their user pages, and posting. I think we tried to have every student make a minor comment on an article in the first week, so that that at least plants the seed where they might get some response or have some interaction by the second week. The second and third weeks are the ones that I don't remember very clearly without having my notes come up here, but I know we talked about, I'm pretty sure in the second week we focused mostly on the social dynamics of Wikipedia. So we talked about what kinds of people edit Wikipedia. We talked about how common it is for there to be anonymous editors and how people feel about privacy, and then also about conflict of interest and how those dynamics can sometimes conflict, where at least on English Wikipedia, most editors are anonymous, but there's also a lot of sensitivity to people editing where they have a conflict of interest. So that can be a sort of a tense interaction. And we talked about the nature of decision-making, what the consensus model is, and how how administrators are elected, how articles are the quality ratings, the featured articles and good articles. And we had our students look through a specific decision. So we would show them like an articles for deletion discussion, or a featured article discussion where an article is getting reviewed, and we have some discussion around that. We also, I think, just in terms of the structure, when we started off, we had each week we had 2 sessions. We had a 1-hour lecture session, and then on a different day, we had a 1-hour, what we called a lab session that was unstructured, where the idea was more that people would come with their questions about the work that they were doing, and we would have a more open discussion. And in the final version, actually, because of the constraints of the course, the university course we were going to be coordinating with, we instead just did a single 1.5-hour session every week. And we made that about...
Sorry, were synchronic sessions online, or how did it work? Was it broadcast?
Yes, it was all online. And in fact, I think I skipped before. The online platform that we ended up using was Blackboard Collaborate.
Yes.
And I don't think I would really recommend it. That's another one that many of the features of Blackboard, there are many very cool features, but many of them are redundant of the kinds of things that we want students doing on Wikipedia. And also it's based on Java. We had a number of students had technical difficulties getting connected. So I'm not sure that I would recommend that. But.
Yeah. And in that sense, I think Blackboard is quite similar to Moodle. Only Moodle is open source, and I think a bit more friendly. I found it to be a bit more friendly than Blackboard, but that's a really, I don't know, personal thing. In any case, basically you logged in online and you gave the talk, someone else gave the talk, you had a, who was this, the course staff?
So the course staff was, it was me and my colleague in the Communicate OER project, Sarah Frank Bristow. Sarah's background is very much in online education, but not so much in, she has had a Wikipedia account for many years, but prior to the course, she hadn't been very heavily engaged with Wikipedia. So I would do most of the talking, and she would do most of the interaction in Blackboard Collaborate. So as students had questions, she would sort of facilitate the discussion among students.
Mm-hmm.
She would answer the questions that she could, which the more, each time we did the course, there was more that she was able to answer herself. And then if something seemed to need my attention, then she would let me know. So we were both speaking, but it was mostly me. She would sometimes come in and ask a question. Sometimes we would have a student ask questions or share their stories by voice, but mostly it would be me. Another very strong learning point was in the final version, actually Bob Cumming had a very good suggestion, which was, it seemed obvious in hindsight, but I had just not found a way to do it before this. He said that it's really important to present an idea and then have some kind of exercise that allows people to engage with the idea, and to do this in several increments in each course. Or in each class session. So, present something for 10 minutes and then say, okay, here's 5 minutes, go do this, and come back and maybe you ask 2 or 3 of the students to share, something that they observed or learned from that. Mm-hmm. And so we really tried to incorporate that in the fourth.
So instead, at the beginning, you had basically an hour and a half of you, say, explaining things and maybe people asking a bit of questions, and then you gave them some kind of assignment between weeks. How did it work?
Yes, that's exactly right. It was, well, in the first 3 times, it was a 1 hour session, not 1.5 hours. Okay. But otherwise, yes, that's all correct. And then also in weeks 4 and 5, we had, each time I think we had 3 guest speakers. So the first 3 sessions would just be me speaking, me and Sarah. And then week 4, we would have 3 Wikipedians. And then in week 5, we would have 3 OER experts. And all of those videos are actually on Wikimedia Commons and also on YouTube as separate videos. So we have like a 15-minute session with, Andrew Lee was our guest one time, Lane Raspberry, Adrienne Wadowitz. Mm-hmm. So probably a number of people who are familiar in the Wikipedia world, as well as some very cool people from the OER world as well.
So were they chosen because they spoke on a specific topic that you wanted them to feature, or just generally meet the Wikipedians kind of thing? Because I do it as well in my courses, but I usually choose Wikipedians. Like if I do a Wiki Commons workshop, then I would bring someone from the community who's really known for his or her work on Commons, etc. So
yes, well, I think both considerations were always there. I wanted to have a variety of different perspectives. So I'm trying to think of examples, and well, for instance, like at one time I brought in Stephen Laporte, who is more of a wiki source editor than a Wikipedian.
Yes.
And so that was more of an opportunity to see the Wikimedia world a little bit beyond Wikipedia itself. But yes, because we had him as a guest in that session, I made sure that the other 2 guests had a much stronger Wikipedia focus, because of course the course is about Wikipedia. So I didn't want to have 3 people that were all peripheral to Wikipedia.
Yeah, of course. And I guess this is this brings us to yet another question about the course and your decisions in terms of what goes in and out. Our community and our, I would say, movement is vast. I mean, there's not only Wikipedia, there are so many wiki projects. And was it important for you to expose your students to other projects? If so, to which ones? Or was there a decision at the beginning to just focus on Wikipedia and that's that?
Oh, to other projects beyond like Wikidata or
Wikidata, Wiki Commons, etc. Yeah.
I would say it was important that the students had an awareness that those other projects existed, but the focus of the course was really on editing Wikipedia. So, I think, if a student came through our course, it was important to me that they know how to, if their interest was more in writing books, that they would know what Wikibooks is and that they would have an ability to go and explore it on their own. But we wouldn't have done an in-depth session on Wikibooks within this course.
Okay. I think the next question is regarding administration a bit. I mean, okay, you know what, before administration, I think you went to the third session and you said that you had on the fourth and fifth session, you had guest Wikipedians and OER people, but what was the content? I mean, at which point did you or did you not teach wiki syntax and talked about, I don't know, links and how to add references and how to add photos, all the technical stuff that people need to know?
Well, I mean, I think all of those kinds of tasks we addressed really throughout the course. So it's, I mean, weeks 1, 2, and 3, we tried to do the real basics to make sure that we covered wiki syntax and adding references and things like that. But a lot of the other tasks we chose to address more as they came up. So as a student, you know, if a student had their own photos that they wanted to add to an article, then we would use that as an opportunity to talk to the class about how to upload your own photos to Commons and what the different licenses mean, and you know, how to add them to different language versions or something like that. And if the student was doing that in week 2, we might discuss that in week 2. If they got to it in week 5, we might discuss it more in week 5. And that's where I think having the flexibility of the lab session was really useful. You know, let us have some flexibility that that really enabled us to address each iteration of the course, you know, in a custom way. But here, I'll give you the headlines of each of the weeks. I have it all pulled up now. So week 1, the title we call Wikipedia Under the Hood. So that's where we're helping them set up a user account or a user page and just have at least a basic understanding of wiki syntax. And we give them some reading and some videos that they could look at offline to expand on that. Week 2, we called Who Am I to Edit Wikipedia? Identity and Collaboration. So that's really strongly about the social dynamics. And then week 3 is called What is Quality? So week 3 is much more about good article reviews and featured article reviews and how to approach your article with appropriate references and really make sure that the content that you're writing is likely to stick on Wikipedia, or how to argue for its inclusion if other people disagree. Weeks 4 and 5 are the 2 where we had guests. So those ones varied a little bit depending on which guests we had that time. And then in week 6, we had our students present their articles, the articles that they worked on, and we left. That was a very unstructured one.
Sounds good. And actually, like,
and I think, Shani, there's one other point too. I really want to make sure to mention. One thing that we found that was really exciting to me is the students who tended to come to us, and especially the ones who tended to stay with the course, were a group that I think is often very invisible and is very important to Wikipedia, which is people who had in many cases created a Wikipedia account years ago and had maybe made 5 or 10 or even 50 edits to Wikipedia over the years, but mostly they were just correcting typos or making small changes to the grammar. So I think from the perspective of many experienced Wikipedians and sort of, you know, people who've been in the Wikimedia movement for a long time, we might want to consider these experienced Wikipedia editors, but the reality was very much that they did not consider them anything more than a novice. Their perspective was that they had dipped their toes into Wikipedia, but they still had no idea how it worked. It was all very mysterious to them. And, you know, I think in many cases, they were the kind of people who just needed a little bit of structure to help them understand what they were looking at and give them some advice on how to start with it. And then, you know, in many cases, we're you know, ready to be very productive and to do some very cool stuff on Wikipedia. I think sometimes we forget that Wikipedia is, you know, it's generally populated by people who are willing to just roll up their sleeves and get to work and not worry too much about the consequences, but that people who want a little bit, just a little bit more structure often don't know how to get involved with Wikipedia.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. So thanks for raising it here. We're so much occupied with, working with educators and in universities and K to 12 that we forget sometimes, not everybody, but I think you have a really valid point here. And that's definitely one target audience to think about when we create something like that. Let's talk a bit about administration, because from my experience, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I actually created a 4-credit academic course about Wikipedia at Tel Aviv University. So my course is 13 weeks. It's not a MOOC, but it is a full university course. And so I went through all the things that you now describe and a bit more in thinking of what to teach when, etc. And one of the things that I found in that full semester that I had with the students is that a big chunk of it goes to administration, answering questions and announcing and reminding and having a forum, all that kind of stuff, which again, I do on Moodle because that's the university platform. So I kind of use it to communicate about what it is that we do. But on the other hand, we use on Wikipedia, we use the education extension. And I'm curious if you consider that, if that was something you incorporated into the course, and basically what you used to I don't know, on the admin side.
Yeah, so we looked at, so I don't know if you know, I did the design of the public policy initiative, the initial pilot project for the Wiki Education program. And so I am, in very close touch with the team at what was, when we started, was the Wiki Education program, and many of whom went on to the Wikimedia or the Wiki Education Foundation. And so we had a number of discussions about the design of the extension, and it was always very much on our radar. We did use the course pages as the course pages were very important to us, but at the same time, I don't think we really used them as fully as they were intended to be used. It was useful for us to be able to have a list of our students' names, and like each student would choose 1 or 2 articles as their main project, and having that in a structured list that we could go through and check and see the changes our students were making was very useful. And I think the next time that we do it, we will probably use the Wiki Ed Foundation dashboard. Yeah. But again, it's going to be, I've had some discussions with Leanna and Sage. I think the dashboard is so much designed to support a course that is not fundamentally about Wikipedia that I think a lot of the tools they've built into it we're probably going to try to find a way to skip so as to present a cleaner interface for our students. But I think that I think many of the improvements that they've made will really help us a great deal. It seems like they have some great tools for generating analytics that are going to help us be more responsive to our students and have clearer insights into what they're doing and where they're having trouble.
Yeah. So this brings me basically to evaluation and assessment. I'm curious how it worked. I mean, did the students have something that they knew they had to work towards? Who checked what they did? How did it all work? And was it part of getting the badges that you described before?
Yes. So the badge was very much the focus of how we approached assessment. We talked about it every week, and students would ask questions about it. Basically, we tried to encourage students to work in pairs or groups. I think we had somewhat different approaches to that in different iterations of the course, and I'm not sure we ever found the perfect approach. But I think it's very important to have peer assessment built into the course in some form, so that I think if they get used to the idea that an instructor is going to approve their work, then it's going to be a difficult transition for them once the course is over to looking for feedback from whatever Wikipedians are interested in what they're working on.
That is very true, and also I think when considering, especially if we consider, scaling, evaluation, peer review becomes a really huge part of it. I've been doing it in my courses, and I actually, we don't have the dashboard still adapted to Hebrew, so I'm using the Wikipedia education extension, and because I have all the students in one page, then each checks 2 students after, and we created some Google form to help them be very clear about what it is that they need to assess, and how we talked about how to give feedback, all of those things, which are important also in Coursera courses. I mean, I think that's the vision that everybody has when they think of MOOCs. We all think of Coursera or Udacity, that sort of courses, that kind of courses. So yeah, definitely peer-to-peer evaluation, and I completely agree about what you said in terms of not seeking the some kind of lecture or someone to check what it is that you're doing and give you feedback. It has to be the Wikipedia way. So definitely, I completely agree. So you did not have peer-to-peer, I understand, in those.
No, we did.
Oh, you did?
We did have peer-to-peer. I think from the beginning, we always had some kind of peer-to-peer. I think the main difficulty that we had is we tried to establish groups of 4 or 5 students, and I think we did this every time, but because there was so much attrition in our courses, it was difficult to, just when a group felt like it was, you had 4 or 5 people and you got through a couple of weeks, and they were, making good comments about each other's work. Well, if 2 or 3 of those people disappeared, that was very frustrating for the ones that were remaining.
So retention was definitely an issue in your courses.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, I think, as I said, we got better with retention every time. I think there is I think with a free course, there's always going to be some retention issue, but I think there are probably ways.
Yes, certainly. It's a known fact in MOOCs. That's one of the big issues. Thousands of people sign in, very few of them actually complete the course. So it's not unique to your course, and I think it's also not unique to Wikipedia, which has a very small retention rate that we know of from workshops, etc. So I don't think that's unique, and I think it's quite encouraging that you said that each iteration it got better, and you had more students remaining. And I can tell you now that in our previous meeting, I think it was Meli from Argentina told us that they got to 70% retention, which is
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it is possible.
70% retention, the kinds of issues I'm discussing there wouldn't be a problem. If one group got too small, then you just combine it with another group and it's no problem. But when all of your groups are facing that issue at the same time, that's really challenging.
Yeah, but that's certainly something that we need to consider when we create a course and think about administration. It's certainly something that takes time. So at that point, I think I'm wondering if you have any other things that I might have not asked about, and like insights from the process that you have and you want to share before we complete this session.
I think the one thing that I didn't discuss that I think is really important, and probably especially important given your project with Wikimedia Collab, is that the main focus now, as we improve the course for the 5th session, I mean, we want to have both the 5th session and we want to have a very clear self-paced version that people can take on their, on their own. And the main thing that we want to do to support all of that is to make it more modular. So I think we will still have clear week-to-week sessions, but instead of expecting, I would like to get to a point where before we offer it this spring, each 1 hour course or each 1 hour class session has that there are like 4 or 5 videos that present what we would be typically presenting in that class session. And so we don't need to expect that people will all show up at the same time for a face-to-face video session. So I think, so if we have like, and we've created some of these. So I've got a video on how to create a user account and how to choose your username, how to create a user page, something on how the view history screen works. And so if we have enough of a library of that, I think the way that we're going to approach it is we'll say each week you should, like before the next session, you need to watch all 5 of these videos or however many there are. And then and then more of it will be just like a lab session. So it'll be, I guess it's sort of the flipped classroom model. So that when we have everyone together at the same time, we are only using that for discussion rather than for a single session. And I think a benefit of that is that, if we're like say my course generates, say if we create 30 videos and we think that 20 of them are pretty good, and maybe 5 of those are really specific to the way that we're approaching the course, but that's still 15 videos that potentially could be really useful to other courses. So, I would really love to be moving towards something where different people doing different MOOC type things with Wikipedia are able to, take pieces from one another's courses and combine them in different ways. And if other people are interested in taking that kind of approach, I'm very interested in talking about that.
Yes, I think I totally agree, and I think that's also the way Coursera is doing it. They don't have 1 hour sessions anymore because we know from research that students have such a low concentration. I don't know. People can concentrate for shorter amounts of time, 15 minutes, actually between 10 to 20 minutes maximum per video is like the maximum. And I think another point of the Argentinians that I really liked was that they used a lot of ideas from gamification theory. So they created very like nice and communicative and short tasks for each session, and they kept it light and fun, and probably I don't know, I think it worked for them at least. So we need to see how to make it more accessible as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for joining me and sharing your experience, and I hope we'll see you in the group that's working on developing this WikiMOOC idea broadly. Yes, so we'll meet after Christmas, and I'll simply join you to the mailing list that runs it. So thanks so
very
much.
good. Well, thank you so much. This is a great conversation, and I look forward to learning from everyone else.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing everything.
Okay, well, we'll talk soon.
Yes, have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.